Alrighty guys, welcome back indeed for more Path of Exile. So in part 6 of the Endgame, or part 16 if you're watching this as the full walkthrough, we're going to be taking on the Guardians. Like I mentioned, you really want to go ahead and get all of your stuff ready because these bosses are quite tough, especially for the very first time, but they will get easier as you understand the mechanics. So there are several different Guardians that you're going to be fighting before these Endgame bosses. It doesn't really matter in which order that you do these in, however, I feel like Shaper / the Elder are going to be a little bit easier than Cirrus, which that guy is pretty tough, which we'll show you guys how to defeat all of them. But we're going to start it off with all of the Guardians to fight Shaper. So you can acquire these by just playing the game. You can also get them by going to Aquilaxx. He can have it on the Atlas mission. He can randomly roll these. So you can also buy these from other players. So there's multiple different ways to obtain these, but these are going to be towards the end of the game. Most of these maps will be like tier 16. Sometimes they can be in the lower section, but they're all going to be considered pretty much in the red map zone, so like 14, 15, 16. So as you're starting to complete the Atlas, you're going to get higher tier ones as you start climbing up the Atlas. Eventually, you're going to get these things called Watchstones, which are going to increase the tier of all of the maps on your Atlas. But just get these as drops, or again, you can purchase these from other players. But if you don't get them as drops earlier on, yeah, you can just go buy them from players. They're not too expensive, but just as a heads up, when you do fail these, yeah, you're gonna have to purchase these again. Or if you don't get the drop that you need, because there is some RNG with some of the drops with the Uber Elder, which we'll talk about a little bit later down the line, but there are drops that can be RNG just in the game, so you may not get all of these, instantly early on. You might be missing one of these, so just purchase it from another player. And yeah, let's go ahead and cut to the mechanics, and I'll explain everything. Alright, so the next mechanic that I want to show off is the Shaper. So before we get to fight him, we actually have to defeat 4 bosses. Then we have to collect the drops from the 4 bosses, combine them to actually fight him. So there's going to be several different bosses to actually fight. So those are going to be the Pit of the Chimera, the Minotaur, the Hydra, as well as the Phoenix. I'm just going to go ahead and scour all these just so they're just at the base level so we can rush through it. But I would recommend, if it's your first time, just do these white. Don't modify these maps. The map itself is basically the exact same. The boss is different, and they do have mechanics I have to explain on each one. So just like any other map, you go in. I would recommend also don't turn Maven on for this, because these will significantly increase the difficulty, and you just want to try to be able to beat them the first time. So just like any map, you throw it in, you get to the very end, and I'll resume the video once we get to the end of the level, because the boss is essentially what we're here for. Alright, and just as a heads up, you can buy these maps from players. At the moment of me making this video, they're anywhere from 10 to 15 chaos a piece. But now we're heading into the Pit of the Chimera. So this one's heavily on the physical damage. So when he does that ability, you'll see that there's kind of a ring, and you want to step outside. It's a red ring. Now when he disappears, we're actually hit pretty hard for some bleed damage. So he'll disappear for a little bit. You'll just kill some monsters. The monsters aren't really that difficult at all, but he's basically sitting here waiting, and you can see him there, and it's kind of cool. But the only mechanic that you really have to learn with this is when he comes back, sometimes there's going to be these clouds, and you see there's these clouds here, and you have to go inside the clouds. If you do not go inside the clouds, he will infinitely deal damage to you, and you will lose. See that red ring? It's kind of hard when you're playing minions to see, but there is a giant red ring, and you want to step outside when he does his little slash attacks. But he's all about, he can do a decent amount of bleed too, so watch out for that. If you want to run something to remove that, that would be always helpful. He's doing his ability once again. We found him real easy. It's random, by the way. There's no way to tell which cloud he's in, but he's a really easy boss. I would say he's one of the easier ones. The only one that I feel like is kind of difficult is the Minotaur, because Minotaur can surprise jump on you and you just die instantly. And there's also a shock effect in there, which increases the damage you take. But with minions, it's always much easier. Even if you're playing a build that doesn't have minions, though, just summoning some minions can help. So now, the only important thing that he drops that we need to really make sure that we get is specifically the Fragment of the Chimera. There's going to be Fragment of Chimera, Hydra. We're going to get all of them to fight another boss. But yeah, that's the mechanic of the Chimera. He's pretty easy. Alright, coming up to the Hydra. So this one's all about cold. And when you start going in, you'll see that there are these flying orbs that come out from the left and the right. Trying to get hit by them, they do damage. And And pretty much you can just kind of stay far away if you're ranged. The main thing is just to not to get hit by those. And just keep doing damage. There's just so many projectiles sometimes, though, that you might get tapped by one, but they don't do an insane amount of damage unless you get hit by like 2 in a row, basically. Usually any build will have like, some sort of leech to kind of recover from it, but I mean, yeah, they will hit for a decent amount of damage if you get hit by like strings of them. But like that one's another one of the easier guardians. Very easy mechanics, just don't get hit by the projectiles. But they do have, I believe, like a chain or a fork that where if it hits something else. But very easy. That is the basics of the Hydra, even though like we absolutely rolled it. And the most important thing is we're really doing these just so we can kind of just complete the game, because my goal to teach you guys is to be able to conquer most of the things in Path of Exile. And this is like one of like the big bosses that we're leading up to, called the Shaper. Alright, next one, Minotaur. This is one of the ones I find to be a little bit more difficult. So these things will shock you. He basically spawns at the bottom. You want to go into him, and when he does a dive attack, be very cautious. Also, he'll do these things. Oh gosh, I need to not do so much damage to him, actually. Otherwise, I might kill him too fast. And I want to show you guys how he works. Alright. So, you see how there's this giant circle? There's going to be rocks that fall down. They do damage. The smartest thing to do is stand next to a edge. The reason why is the ring will go around. See where my mouse is? It can basically not cause as easy overlap. See how there's an overlap here? If you stand in here, it will shock you. Okay. But like, I mean, you see these lightning towers, right? They do shock you. We are immune to shock because of Tempest Shield. However, yeah, these will shock you. They'll slow you down still, so watch out for that. But the important thing is when he does like a dive attack, when he does that, I would suggest moving out of the way. Obviously, we have minions, so he can dive and pop out. Those are the times where he can actually one-shot you. Like I said, our damage was really high. That's why I moved over. At least you guys got to see the little rings, because the thing is that you want the arena to not be filled with those rings. So what you do is you hug a wall. It doesn't have to be this one, but to start off, he's always going to be spawning right down here. Usually what people do is they go down here and then they go and hug this side of the area and then just spam him. And then once they hit him over here, they just go to the other wall and they kind of rotate on walls. The reason why is because the ring will be kind of outside and it won't hit all of the arena, if that makes any sense. But that is the mechanics of the Minotaur. But you just basically will watch out for his little like pop up, because he'll dive into the ground, then he'll pop up, and that's the thing that does the most damage. But yeah, there's Minotaur, and we obviously collected the thing, and now we only got one more, the Phoenix. Alright, next one up is going to be the Phoenix. Now, one thing that's important, I actually removed my Animate Guardian gem, like I took it in and out. The reason why is because there's a chance that he may actually die on this boss, and I don't want him to die, because then I had to buy my stuff again. So, remove Animate Guardian, the gem, if you want to, just so he does have a high chance to die. So, let's go and hop in. This one actually does have a mechanic where we actually do need to avoid. So, he has this, like, slash attack. Don't worry about that too much. It's usually not that big of a deal. When he charges up, move away. So he'll do like this giant charge up attack. You'll see that there are fire tornadoes, just don't get hit by them. There's also phoenixes that come out. Don't worry, you don't have to kill him, but you can kill him. Come on, I want him to do his attack where he charges up. We might be doing too much damage. Okay. Okay, well he melted kind of fast, to be honest, on that one. But the main thing is when he's charging up, move away. There's going to be a giant ring, but then he slashes just basically in a straight line. He did the slash a couple times at least, so you guys got to see it. But pretty much, that attack isn't the thing that's going to do the most damage, but it's very, very visible. So if you stand behind him for the most part, that is the goal. But when he does his charge up attack, you have a couple seconds to maybe like get a little bit of damage, but you really gotta dip. That explosion is what may kill your Animate Guardian. So that's why I always recommend, unless you're for sure your Animate Guardian is strong enough, to uncast it. Now I'm gonna go resummon my Animate Guardian. But yeah, that's one where he could potentially die out on. But now we're gonna be moving on to the Shaper. Alright, let's go ahead and do Shaper. So we're gonna take all of those fragments that we just got, the Hydra, the Phoenix, the Chimera, and the Minotaur, and throw them in here. You can enable Maven, it will make it more difficult, but for the sake of, if it's your first time, just do it this way. And you have to put them in that correct, like, little shape. You can't, like, really mess it up. And let's go ahead and go on in. So, it's random on the bosses that you face, but there's going to be 4 bosses that you have to fight first. And we're going to obviously have to fight all of them. So, fight 4 bosses. It's random on what you get. Go. So Shaper actually is a pretty fair boss. So yeah, the bosses that you get may vary, but it's really not that big a deal. This thing is just way too tanky. Okay. And he's gone. So once we defeat, there's one gone. It'll tell us to turn away, but we're not going to. Next boss, so 1 out of 4 complete. We're still like leveling up our gems and stuff, so there's still more min-maxing to do with this build, but it's melting content, as you guys saw, like real fast. No problem at all. Especially when you summon the ball summon skeletons at this point. It's just fantastic. And then he's got his next phase. One of the more annoying bosses. There are certain bosses that just have multiple phases. And he's out. So remember, this one you gotta stay inside the ring. And you do want to be fast with this at some point. I'm actually going to pick this up for something else as a base. Now we're going to go to the top left. So we did bottom left, bottom right. It doesn't matter, by the way, the order that you do this in. Not at all. Did the boss go? Okay. So we go ahead and go push the time crank so we can actually stand over here so I can apply the brittle. Or if you're melee, then yeah, you're gonna have to stand in it. Go to the portal and the final one. And then we get to actually fight him. So this boss's mechanic is actually very important to learn, because if you don't like know it, it's not something that for the very first time you can go in. He's actually one of the bosses that I felt like was pretty scary going in without knowing, because he's hard. Not scary as in like, oh, I'm frightened, but like scary as in like, if you haven't played the game before and this is like your first time and you fight him, man, he is actually relatively tough if you don't know the mechanics. There we go. And we are at the final area. So now this area will open up. And one thing that I need to mention that's very important. If you see, like, it's the same color purple. If you see him, like, he kind of moves his hands and then, like, there's going to be this purple thing. He's going to be doing what's called the slam. The slam will pretty much one-shot most people. However, he does a large amount of cold damage. But for the most part, that attack, you'll die. He has this giant, like, beam, like, almost looks like from Dragon Ball Z, a giant beam. That beam actually does a pretty good amount of damage, but, like, it's going to, like, drain over time. So, yeah. And then there's, like, a little bubble that you have to step in. And I'll kind of mention it as we see it. But that's something that it might be harder to see because we have all these minions. But also the Animate Guardian, if you do need to call it back, use Convocation to call him back, move him out of like danger. But you'll see that there's this little red bubble, we're eventually going to use it. So those little orbs, okay, there's the beam right there. So the orbs aren't, okay, there's the slam. That's the thing that you have to dodge. Or just get lucky and not get touched by. So yeah, that beam, since we have so many minions, he's just going to target one of them and we'll be like totally lucky. But just kind of watch him. Don't let him go off of your screen. And eventually he'll start summoning minions, and you just kill the minions. This part's pretty safe. It's just used pretty much to refill your flasks. So you'll be a-okay on that. And there's also these white orbs. You want to go towards the edge of the map, let them touch you, and then they're going to pop. Then they're going to spawn basically a degen on the floor. And you don't want that to happen in like the middle of the map. So if you see those, yeah. But the yellow orbs, those ones just kind of go off the screen. Okay, we'll go apply our brittle. He's going to be doing his beam. The main thing is just the slam that you got to be careful of. The rest of the things don't matter. He's eventually going to warp you out. Now, during this, you want to go as fast as possible because right now he is regenerating. So get as far as you can, as fast as you can. And then you're going to have to fight another boss. For melee, this boss is like a joke. Or not a joke, but this boss can be kind of a threat. For range characters, this boss is like super, super easy. He's not really that like hard. But it's just like if you don't know, yeah, it's one of those kind of things in PoE. Is he to the right over here? Okay, here we go. We're gonna save our Vol skeletons for our Shaper, because this other boss will be very easy. But yeah, go as fast as you can. Let's go. But yeah, Shaper is kind of one of like the OG ultimate bosses in PoE. And like for any like completionist or like, for any like guide, I think killing him is cool. So there's the boss. So he does a strat like slam, and then that like lingers on the ground. If your animate guardian goes in it, call him back because he could die. But yeah, for range, this character really not be uncreated. But you see how animate guardian taking a good amount of damage. Recall him because that thing does do a good amount of damage. That's why I always meant for melee, be very, very careful. Cut him down. And we go through the portal, and now we find him. Now, this is the second phase of the Shaper. Things are going to get a little bit more difficult. So this time, you'll see that there's Zana, and she has this like red bubble. And eventually we're going to be wanting to go in it. So you can see we're in the bubble right now. And all these projectiles get stopped by the bubble. You gotta watch out, because Shaper will sometimes surprise you, and if he's doing that, that's your phase to attack. There's a slam, move out of the way. And I think we have do we have a white orb? Okay, we have a white orb. When you see a white orb, you don't really want him to be off of your screen though, but like in that instance, I wanted to pop the bubble off. And make sure Zana doesn't die. It's super easy as minions to, as long as you have enough damage, she won't die. If you put it over like, another one to overlap it, very good thing to do. But if Zana dies, this mission becomes like super hard, and it's like almost undoable. So there's no money. You want to pop these outside too. This happens. Sometimes you can't get it on the very edge, but that's okay. Recalling our animate guardian because I don't want him to die. A lot of times you can hear him, like if he says gaze into the abyss, you actually want to move out of the way, even if you're inside of the orb, because that's like inside the red orb. And the reason why is because that's when he's able to be actually attacked. But yeah, just basically have, if you have your if he has your if his back is to you, it's usually the safest. That's like a good little like extra little note. Yeah. So we're gonna be on the last phase of the Shaper, the hardest phase. But don't worry, he's been kind of outclassed, to be honest. Like, I mean, even some of the newer bosses, the Eater of the Worlds is one that I feel like is one of the more difficult ones. And the reason why is because like it's very dangerous to do the mechanic. But yeah, with the Shaper, like you just kind of gotta know. But he's fair once you understand the mechanics, because they can all be pretty much avoided. There's another boss over here, the Unshaped. Again, watch out for those AoEs on the floor. Recall your animate guardian if you need to. I want to apply the brittle, but like it's like right under him. He's doing his giant like slam attack, that leaves the linger thing. I'm just summoning a bunch of stuff because this way my animate guardian doesn't die. He's doing the slam again. Alright, we got him down. And the last. So once again, standing here, see all the orbs. Find minions, but again, Zana will very rarely just die when you're playing a minion, because there's just too much things to attack. Just don't let her die though. Oh, there we go. He's doing a slam, move out of the way. That's the big damage. See how his back is turned to us? That's good. We have a bunch of white orbs following us. We want to pop these off. They're off of it. Good. Now we're going to go back into the center here, where we're protected. We have another white orb coming through very, very soon. We don't want to pop on Zana, like area, so we'll just move out of the way. He's almost dead. And he actually can drop a pretty good item. Orb of Dominance over here. We got the Crusader Gloves early on. I'm not sure if these are going to be really worth anything at this point. Like, these used to be good. They got nerfed. But there is a flask that can drop called Dying Sun that early on in the league, it's usually worth a little bit, but at this point it's probably relatively cheap. Like right now, these Seperate Gloves, they're worth like 1 to 2 Chaos Orbs, not really worth anything. This Orb of Dominance that we got is pretty decent though. It's worth an Exalt, but that's not like, it's not like you're going to get certain things guaranteed, but like the Dying Sun's like one of the like the OG like cool items that can actually drop from them. But anyways, there it is, guys. You defeated Shaper, you defeated all the Guardians, congratulations, but it's not over. We have something called the Elder and Uber Elder to actually fight, which is basically another super boss, but that's how you actually defeat him. Alrighty, so congratulations, you defeated Shaper. This boss is definitely not the easiest, especially for your first time. So if you die on it, or you completely failed it, you wasted all 6 portals, it's okay, it happens. All you need to think about is how to make your character a little bit more powerful. So feel free to go and get some more cluster jewels with your character, or just start upgrading your gems, start corrupting the gems once they're 20/20, and that will increase your DPS a little bit. Sometimes it's just all about a DPS check versus getting your actual mechanical skill down, because as good as you can be, the more damage you can deal out, the faster the boss fight is going to end. And usually how it works in Path of Exile with these what are called pinnacle bosses is they get more difficult the lower their HP is. They'll like do more mechanics, or there's going to be other things going on. And so you're going to try to defeat Shaper and try to get these Fragment of Knowledge. So what these will open up is the Uber version of Shaper as well as Elder. You're going to be fighting like a multi-boss fight. So you don't have to keep on doing these specifically for this drop, but this is something that if you don't want to interact with trading with other people, this is one way you can do it. Is just keep on doing the Shaper again and again until you get the parts that you need to actually do the Uber Elder. Next part in the playthrough we'll show off for the endgame is we're going to show off how to defeat the Elder, and then we can also talk about Cyrus, and then we're going to do the Uber, and then we're going to do Maven, we're going to do the Fear, we're going to do every challenging obstacle that this game has. So again, these bosses are pretty hard. I mean, this is why it's like the end game, right? So don't worry if you didn't make it on your first try. You can do it. I believe in you. Shaper and Elder are one of the easier ones. Cyrus has got a lot more mechanics that we'll talk about once we get to him. But congratulations if you defeat him. If not, no worries. But anyways, thanks for tuning in for this part. The next part will be up very soon when we take on the Elder. But thanks for tuning in. Drop a like on your way out, and I'll see you guys in the next part. Peace.